Yeah. Anyone seen it out in action? I guess you see ads when you're surfing the internet and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess today I just wanted to, with the theme of challenges and trends, wanted to go through a few things that I think are really changing quite quickly in the mobile space. Kick off with an introduction. A big challenge of today is what's the role for mobile? And Andrew, mate, I was in the the other day just talking to you guys about, waiting for a mobile brief to come along. You can wait quite a long time because they sort of don't exist. And I'll take you through that. Also a challenge around apps versus HTML5. So, whether or not you build an app or whether or not you build a mobile site and how that technology is fueling growth in mobile advertising. Bit of a trend then, around the ad formats and a quick summary. All within 30 minutes, I hope. It's a bit on us. We're quite unique in market in a sense that we are a totally mobile-focused company, as the name would suggest. We don't really get involved in any other areas, although we could. And our focus is very much on mobile because the nature of getting a mobile campaign live at the moment in the Australian media landscape is one that's pretty hard, actually. You need to hold people's hands through, creative, through what the site does, the role for mobile, even things like, which should be quite simple, like, creating banners for the creative agencies. You have to create 5 different sizes of the same banner because the handset screens are different sizes and it's all quite a manual process. So we're wholly focused on mobile, and I guess as a result of that, we've helped quite a lot of brands go mobile for the first time. So our model is one of partnering with premium publishers. I'll take you through those, mobile production and then the reporting side of things. So they're our partners that we work with, and by work with I mean we sort of represent their inventory, and that's the sort of background for you guys. Oh, and we picked up a gong last year as well. Always get a bit bashful with that slide. So I think the first thing I wanted to talk to you about as a challenge is finding the role for mobile. And I think the planners in the room will know that clients are not really coming to agencies saying, right, I've got mobile, I know how mobile works into our communication strategy, or I've got a really clear idea of how mobile is going to fit into this brief. It's a process where we have to sort of dig up and find the role for mobile. So I mean the first thing is, it's extremely rare to get a proper mobile brief. And I've got probably in the last year about 5, maybe 10 briefs that are made for mobile. Usually we're getting online briefs or offline briefs and having to, I guess, sift through that and look at what parts are relevant to mobile and then work with an agency to come up with a strategy around that. And so I guess the main thing is, mobile briefs are often hiding in plain sight. That's his bad there, I think. I've got a photo of it. Often hiding in plain sight. So, what I want to do is give you guys some tools or some thought starters about, how to look for a mobile brief amongst an online brief. So, the key considerations are the audience usage. So, if you're trying to think about how people are using their mobile phones throughout the day, think about how, if you're booking, JC Decode panels, that people are sitting there at a bus stop with a phone, which they could let them interact with that panel. It's in their pocket. Also, people, what are they doing on the way home from work or to work? They're checking the news. Are they checking the weather before they get out of bed? So thinking about the audience usage often helps you sort of pick out or identify a role for mobile. The other consideration is the screen size too. And it goes without saying, but you can't take stuff that's meant for online or a TV ad and whack it into a smaller screen like that. Things don't render properly, so you've got to consider that. Which sort of leads on to content. Look, the average session on mobile is going to be 6 minutes. So any long form content, you've got to be really considerate of the fact that people are not going to sit and watch an hour-long movie on their phone. At least they're not, as of today. Integration I spoke to, and the other thing, network speed. So again, is like, do you, if you're going to have a 1-minute video, how long does that take to download over a 3G network? What happens if the user's on Vodafone, which is admittedly pretty substandard nowadays as a network? It's I'm sure you guys know. And lastly, and I think this is the most important one, is thinking about how the hardware of the phone adds to the uniqueness of that experience. So it's not about just taking something that's online and whacking it into a smaller screen. It's about how you use things like the GPS, the fact that it's location aware, the fact that it's got a camera, it's got a diary, it's a calculator, you've got your contact address book there. It can make phone calls, you've got to remember that as well. So you've got all of these unique device functions which can really add to a user experience. So all of this should really be in the back of your minds when you're looking through briefs and trying to pick out a role for mobile. Any questions on that? Anyone disagree? So some example roles for mobile, just to walk you through some. You know, I guess the question always comes to me is like, is it a brand tool? Is it a direct response tool? We've run thousands of campaigns for top 100 brands, and I can tell you that actually quite split down the middle in terms of the role for mobile. So some brands use us for you know, getting video views or Facebook fan likes or whatever it may be, and others are very, very DR focused, like want to capture leads for a car dealership or drive pick the calls, and everything in between. So you can see sort of up there we've got examples of, you know, branch locating tools here, you know, video views, brand experiences, book a test drive, utility-based things, to Tom's point before. So, you know, this one was an app where it aggregates news feeds, weather feeds, traffic feeds, and an alarm clock where you can set your own wake-up tone, you know, by Panasonic, who want to be the first brand you see in the morning. And that was just a little utility that they've come up with that we built for them. Tourism apps, you know, again, lead gen stuff, things for album launches there as well. So that's, I guess, about the role for mobile, and you know, hopefully that gives you some background into what to look for. The next space, which is a lot of chat going on about this in the tech circles, do you guys know what HTML5 is? It's a lot more yeses than I usually get, which is good. So for those who don't know, I guess, HTML5 is the new language that the internet's been written in. And what it's been dubbed a flash killer. So you can do things in HTML5 that you would have once had to have built in Flash. And of course, with Flash, you need to have Flash plugins installed to be able to see the Flash. And of course, Flash doesn't work on iPhones or iPads, works on some Android devices. So HTML5 is set to be this technology which really changes the internet as a whole, but very much so mobile internet and tablet-based internet. So what it does is it lets you bridge the gap in this conversation of apps versus HTML5. One you download from the App Store, another one's a mobile website, for instance. And HTML5 is really closing that gap with what you can do functionality-wise. So once upon a time, you would have had to have built an app for almost anything other than the most simple of mobile websites. Now you can do some really cool, dynamic, really glossy experiences all over the mobile web, and the barriers to entry are a lot less, it's a lot quicker. So I'm going to run you through the pros and cons of each, and hopefully that helps scale us. So on the app side of things, I mean, the good parts are, it's the cool factor. I mean, I get phone calls, hey, we want to build an app. What for? Oh, we're not really sure yet, but like client wants an app. You know, and that's really letting the the technology dictate the idea, which is really the wrong way around to think about it. So you've got the cool factor, and admittedly, those ads that Apple are doing are brilliant. There's a lot of hype around apps, but I do think they've got limited lifespan. You've got advanced functionality, so I think Ellie's up next or soon talking about their augmented reality home loan app for CBA. That is something you have to do over an app. I mean, it's using some really advanced things, it's using the camera and pulling in a lot of data, and these sort of things you can't do over mobile web as yet. So there's advanced functionality support. Also offline support. So we did the tourism NT app, and obviously you're out in the middle of the desert, your connection's not so strong, so that was an app that you wanted to download. 300 megabytes, it's a huge app, but it's got all the content you want there, and it's available offline when you're being chased by a dingo or whatever it may be. And then of course an app icon. So one of the big selling points is, you know, it's there on your home screen, you push a glossy icon and it opens the app for you, versus a perception of opening up Safari, going through your bookmarks, finding, you know, that site, or typing the URL, whatever. The negatives. So it's a long build time. I mean, we haven't done anything, I don't know anything that's been turned around in less than sort of 4 to 6 weeks, which might not seem like a long time to you guys, and it's not if you're in any channel other than mobile. But the nature of mobile is you're the last thing to get on the plan, you're the first thing off, and you're the last bit of creative assets delivered. So you don't have 4 weeks a lot of the time to build something, and that can be a real stumbling block. So there's a long build time. You've got to submit it to the app stores, and of course Apple can go, no, I don't like that part, submit it again. And every time you do that, it's 2 weeks turnaround. So you've got another bit of time to, I guess, to add to that. It's a huge cost to build for every operating system. So one of the things about apps is you can build an iPhone app. It doesn't just copy paste and then it's on Android. You have to build specific code for it. You can use, as a guide, 50% of it, and then you have to pay another 50% cost on top. So we start doing it for iPhone, Android, Symbian, Windows, BlackBerry. You can start to see that the costs really multiply, and all of a sudden what was a simple idea turns into 150k campaign or 150k production spend across all different platforms. Any changes take resubmission, so submit it to the App Store and you've figured out that you've spelt something wrong, you have to resubmit it to the App Store and wait another 2 weeks to change the text in it, for instance. Or you know, some of the branding changes for your brand, where you have to submit it again. And the big thing I think that everyone misses, although it's in the tiniest font down there, is what happens when the support stops? And by nature, we're working in an industry which is campaign-based. You know, we get briefed on things that last for 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, not years and years and years. And an app doesn't just disappear off people's phones when the campaign stops. So what happens when you think you've got a great idea, but there's only a commitment from the client to refresh content for that campaign period, and then you've got what is a really stale, static app left on people's phones until they get pissed off and delete it. So you've got to keep that in mind as well, and I think that's really missed all the time. Questions? So HTML5, the good parts. The functionality gap between what you can do in an app and what you can do over the mobile web is closing very quickly. You know, as of October now, but as of October today, you can do things like local caching. So what I mean by that is offline support. You can have up to 5 megabytes of offline support built into a mobile website now. So that could be anything from, you know, we just built a mobile website for Fat as Butter Festival, which was at Newcastle over the weekend, and they wanted to have offline support because coverage isn't great when you're on the ground, but so you can still pull up your map and the timetable and all of that when you haven't got a connection, which you would have thought you had to build an app for, but you don't. You know, the GPS thing is huge as well, so all of your mapping and your location-based stuff can all be done over mobile web now. You don't have to build an app. The accelerometer, so that's that doohickey that when you tilt the phone side to side, it knows that you're tilting it left and tilting it right. You know, like the spirit level type thing. Yeah, so I mean, maybe you want to build a game over a mobile web where you're tilting stuff. You know, maybe it's a beer bottle or a Coke bottle that, you know, you tip out some of the Coke. It's just a little, you know, interactive ad unit and such. Swipe, pinch, zoom, all of that sort of, you know, very smartphone-y based hand gesture stuff. Can vibrate as well, and also very recently audio, so you can click a button and some sounds can play. So I guess the question is, what's not on that list? And what's not on that list is camera, you know, as of today, so no accessing the camera. No accessing the address book, and I think that's, and Bluetooth. Can't access Bluetooth as well. But rewind 6 months and that list is half of what it is today, and fast forward 6 months and I think you're going to see it almost complete. And that's the exciting thing about working in mobile, if you guys are interested, is things change on a monthly basis, which makes your job exciting but also very hard to stay across all of the things that are happening. So, the other thing is you can change it on the fly, and the last point is you can add it to your home screen. Not a lot of people know this, but when you go into your options, you say, you can either add a bookmark or you can add the icon to your home screen. And if you guys visit Yahoo on your phone now, yahoo.com.au, for first-time users, you get a little pop-up down the bottom which actually says, hey, why don't you add this to your home screen? So we're building all of our sites now with that, saying, hey, add this to your home screen, and then we get that organic traffic from people returning that way, which is good.
So is that like a little button? Like
Yeah.
an app, so it looks almost like an app?
Yeah, exactly right, exactly right. The thing is as well, like people ask, one part I missed, but if you guys are interested in search, is Google can't search stuff in the App Store, in any App Store. So if you're trying to, you lose that discoverability from search engines if it's only an app. If it's a mobile website, of course, you can put it into your SEM and SEO strategies as well. Yeah. So the negatives, not as cool, sort of in inverted commas there. I think that'll change pretty quickly. Not the advanced functionality yet, and not the same level of offline support, i.e. limited to sort of 5 megabytes, rather than, it can be gigs from that thing. So, HTML5 is an extension to that sort of topic. It's also changing, if it's changing the mobile internet space, it's also changing what we can do around advertising on the mobile internet. And this stuff, I guess, is probably really highly relevant to, I guess, the sort of people in this room, in a sense that we were once here, and this was a year ago or 2 years ago. That was the best of the best mobile advertising placement available on the Vodafone Live portal. Pixelated, low colours, low resolution. The portal itself was very text-based. Not really a brand-friendly environment. There's not porn or anything on there, or there is if you go into it. But it's not like, what sort of brand association do you get from that? Well, not much really. And we've moved on to, this is thankfully the new standard of lowest common denominator stuff on mobile. This is the Vodafone portal, by the way. So, it renders well on devices. You can do animation within the banner. It is quite simple. We're talking 2 or 3 frames, animated GIF sort of stuff. But at least it looks a lot better. And then, as of a year ago, I guess, we've moved on to this space where, right, you can now click on these banners and it can expand. And I know this seems really basic, but trust me, this is like a quantum leap forward in mobile advertising placements. There's so many more challenges on mobile that you guys will come across than online. You've got devices, like I said, network speeds, all of these different things. So to get to this state is actually quite exciting for the industry. So we got to that, and most publishers offer this now. I think you'll see it, if you go to Sydney Morning Herald or news.com.au, you'll see little expandable stuff, have a play around. Our vision is very much to use the changes in HTML5 to drive innovation through these ad formats and that space. So we took this space and we're thinking, right, what can we do in that space? So the next one's something for Windows, and their brief to us was, we've got a new operating system, it's Windows 7. We want to target people on iPhones, and because we think our operating system's better. So our idea was to use that expandable space, well, actually quite a bit more, in order to show what their operating system looks like. So it's the ultimate disruption strategy, really, because you're targeting people on iPhones to show them what the Windows operating system looks like. And this is what the banner looks like. So what you can do there, so all of those things are sort of whirling and twirling, and each of those tiles is itself a link to a video about that particular functionality of the phone. So this sort of thing, like I said, wasn't available 6 months ago. It is, it is today, and this is changing very quickly. So one's for Commonwealth Bank, where we're talking about bringing some of the things you normally would have to build a site for into the banner. So here you can go click to call within the banner, or you can use your GPS and find your local business banker. And see here, I'll just rewind that a second. So what you've done here is go, here you can see, you can click a button, it initiates a call, you go straight through to the call centre. Their brief was actually we want to connect people with their local business bankers, and all of their activity was about, hey, call this switchboard number. And so our idea was like, yeah, while you can call the number there, if you use your GPS, which is the second option, locate a bank, use your GPS, here's where you are, here's where the local branches around you are. You click on one, there's the address of it, all that sort of stuff. But the really cool thing is, as you scroll down, we've looked up a database and said, right, you're in the city, the guy who looks after the city business banking is Joe. He's obviously a busy man because he's at all 3 branches. And what you can do is click on a button there and call Joe, and you can see that how that is connecting the user with the business banker and not going through the call centre and adding extra steps. And that's the power of mobile. Like, see, we've used the GPS, which is a unique function of the device, and it's only available recently through this HTML5 sort of change. And we've used that to create a really customised, personalised experience, which cuts out steps. There you go. So the next one is, I guess, the next frontier of what you can do in banner spaces, and this is one we did for Amex. And I'll show you, just again, preface it with, this is all over mobile web, and it looks and feels like an app. So that's a banner, you click on it, it expands, it loads. And so what it is sort of like a lemon toss, a paper toss style game in a banner. So you're having that sort of gamification style things. And this is actually quite a simple execution based on what it could have been. All it is you have a couple of tosses at it, and it gives you a message around well done or whatever it may be. But what we could do is things like tie in Facebook leaderboards. So you log in via Facebook and it says, right, here's your score versus your friends. We could add multiple levels where there's wins factor and stuff coming in. There could be a thing where, rather than flicking it, you're throwing it almost, using the accelerometer. Could be any number of those things using that hardware support that I was telling you about before. So when I walk into creative agencies and media agencies, what I say to them is challenge us. Challenge us to do stuff that we haven't done before, because we certainly didn't have this type of format or capability off the shelf. The nature of mobile is someone comes up with a crazy idea, and then your technical director rips his hair out for 2 or 3 days and then says, finally, yeah, we can do that. And that's the exciting part about it. So think broad and think about, I guess, pushing that envelope. So this is my sort of version of a summary. I think what we're going to see, my predictions are HTML5 being an app killer in probably the next 2 years maximum. I think that you're going to see a lot more people building sites in HTML5 rather than apps. And keep in mind that you build your website in HTML5, it's actually quite easy to turn it into a mobile site, so there's cost savings there. Quite easy to turn it into a tablet site. So the remaining publishers to launch their ad offerings. So by that I mean, there's still people out there who don't have mobile optimised sites for reading their news and content and stuff. And hopefully more planners and strategists at an agency level thinking about mobile. and how that works, and really sifting through those briefs and picking out mobile parts. And obviously, NGen is leading the way because, based on what you guys are doing on your phones, the sort of your knowledge base is so far advanced than the sort of old school of people who've been around in agencies for 10, 15 years. So, change takes sort of a new generation to come through, and I guess that's almost us in a way. So, I think what's going to decrease is apps for apps' sake as an education piece changes. Hopefully mobile is an add-on and the last thing to be planned changes. And I think the barriers to entry also go down, as just heard that the IAB are finally putting together a mobile standards committee and around tracking and reporting and formats and stuff. So obviously that increases the ease of implementation, which should reduce those barriers to entry. That's me. Any questions? Question?
I was just, when you had up your pros and cons of HTML5 versus app, I didn't see that was your push notifications, and with HTML5, is there ever going to be that sort of functionality, or would that be seen as too intrusive?
That's a really good question, and admittedly that is something that is a big plus of an app. Not available over HTML5 at present, but like I said, there's literally people in, I kid you not, Iraq and Afghanistan who are leading the way in coming up with new HTML5 functionalities, and these guys are cracking new pieces, like I said, on a monthly basis. So not as yet, but I can see that working. Any other questions?
Is it a lot more difficult to build a website straight up on HTML5 than it is on Australia?
No, not really. I think any developer sort of worth his weight in salt is focusing on that now. So HTML5, it's still that language, but I guess you're writing it with a few other things in mind. I would insist that if anyone's building a website, as of today, you'd be building it in HTML5. Otherwise it'd be like buying a new computer and installing, Windows XP on it, sort of thing.
Thank you, Kate.
No worries.